Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show with myself and Dan. We are on episode 34. This week we are going to delve deep into nutrition. So we often get questions come through about nutrition. Me and Dan both love nutrition. Being coaches, being having trained for a long period of time, I think it's one of those things that every guy in their teens jumps into the training, and it normally takes a good anywhere between 5 and 10 years of training that bollocks off and then going, maybe I should take a look at this nutrition side of stuff. The people are saying it's important, and then I don't know about you, but when I started to take my nutrition seriously, my results skyrocketed.
I think from what I found, nutrition, I think in terms of strength, it does help a lot, but where it really makes the difference is in body composition, without a doubt. There's that old saying, I don't believe this to completely be true, but I see where it's going with of how your fat loss efforts are a result of 20% training and 80% nutrition. I think, you can argue about the details of that, but it really hammers home the importance of how the importance of how important nutrition is. It's essential. I've had this battle with clients constantly. You cannot out-train a bad diet. You just can't. And you hear people say it over and over again, but you really can't. It is the difference between making it or breaking it with your fat loss efforts and building muscle as well, especially for guys that I see really struggle to gain size. You look at their nutrition and their sleep, but you look at their nutrition and it's just abysmal, really.
The classic one is I eat loads, but I can't put any weight on. And then you look at their food and they're having a Weetabix for breakfast, having a sandwich at lunchtime, and then they get a decent meal that their mum cooks in an evening. It's your proteins are 50 grams a day. No wonder you're not building anything. Oh, they have a protein shake, so they're at 80 grams a day. And it's just okay, put some protein in, put 30 to 35 grams of protein in at each one of those meals, eat some more carbs, and guarantee in a month or two you're going to put some weight on.
Yeah, I mean, carbs is a big one. Carbs are protein sparing, so when you're trying to build muscle, they're essential. That's what's fueling your training. Fat is delicious, and some people prefer to go higher fat because it just tastes great, and fair enough. But realistically, you need enough fat to cover your hormone function, and it doesn't really play any other use but that. I mean, so you could get away with probably a lot less fat than you need, but you need to really push those carbs up, I think, to gain the quality size you need. And I think when dieting as well, if you're interested in keeping performance as high as possible, I would always, 10 times out of 10 favor carbs to fuel those training sessions, because especially when you're getting deep into training, I mean, you can swap out carbs to get some rapid weight loss quickly if you're getting close to comp. But if you're still interested in lifting as much weight as you can, then you're going to have to keep those carbs relatively high. They won't be high, but relatively high, so you can keep putting the effort in your sessions.
Definitely. I think I was very much in the low carb brigade when I first qualified.
I think we all were, mate, weren't we?
Yeah. Insulin was the enemy of all fat loss. Insulin was the reason why everyone was fat. And everyone was going down the Atkins, the low carb, the keto, that kind of stuff, because in the short term, it works really, really well, because everything that is calorie dense has carbs in it. So as soon as you cut out carbs, you cut out all the nutrient dense foods, and it forces you to eat good quality, not nutrient dense foods, calorie dense foods. It forces you to eat good quality nutrient dense foods, which aren't that calorific. So by default, it puts you into a calorie deficit. And it's interesting, when I run these little 5-day challenges, we talk about the importance of the calorie deficit. There's that doctor in America who basically ran a calorie deficit, ate Twinkies, ice cream, donuts, and cookies, lost weight, but also his health markers were in a better place, because actually the thing that causes the inflammation isn't necessarily the food itself. it's what it's doing to you internally. It's the body fat, it's the hormonal things, it's all that kind of stuff. So I don't condone like eating a really high sugar, high processed food diet. You can lose weight on it. You'll just not feel great because there won't be a lot of food in there.
Yeah. I mean, this is what the macro tracking brought. Like, I think of my friend's famous article they did over at Propane where they ate nothing but Haribo and cheesecake and got ripped. And I know those guys, and they got shredded. I think they wanted to bear in mind one of them is I think he's a surgeon. I think Yusuf's a surgeon. Well, he's definitely in the NHS. But both highly intelligent guys, and they just trolled everyone like crazy by getting as ripped as they could on Haribo and cheesecake, and it worked. It did work. Not to say I don't know if they felt the best or not, but maybe they felt brilliant being that lean. But it just goes to show, yes, you can have these kind of foods. I mean, there's other things around that, but it worked. So yes, I mean, you can kind of, to a certain extent, eat what you want. I mean, long term, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but
yeah,
it was quite funny to watch, seeing two young guys just eat whey protein and nothing but sweets and get shredded. It just completely blew everyone's minds.
And it's one of those things where when you're trying to lose weight, the number one thing about any diet is adherence. It's can you keep to it for the period of time you need to lose the amount of weight you've got to lose. Because why if somebody's got, say, like 6 pounds to lose, like the keto diet or something like that, that's going to get you in, out, done really quickly, and you've lost all that weight, but you only need to be in it for 3 weeks, then that's probably a good option. If you've got 20 kilos to lose, then something like the keto diet, something that's that restrictive, where actually even if you're losing a kilo a week, is you're still going to be on it for 20 weeks, is can you keep that up for that period of time? I like to say to my clients, you can eat what you want, you just can't eat everything that you want. So it's all about portion control and balance. So that 80-20 split. So have good quality, nutrient dense food for 80% of it so that you're moving towards your goals. And then have fun with the 20%. If you want to have a Kit Kat after training, crack on. I'm not going to tell you off about it. If you want to go and have a date night and go out for a meal with your missus or your significant other, like, crack on, just account for it. Just make sure that you are eating well up to that point, and that it stays at that one meal, that one meal doesn't become a 5,000 calorie binge that undoes all the work you've done after like 2 or 3 weeks. And it's that all or nothing mindset that a lot of people get into that actually ruins their progress, because they're like, right, I'm on it, I'm nailing everything 100%, and then they slip up once and their brain goes, oh right, because I fucked up, like I'm gonna go all out, and they order a full Domino's with Ben and Jerry's, and suddenly they've downed 5,000 calories and then feel awful. And then it's then a very, very negative cycle. Like, I've dealt with a lot of people that have got damaged relationships with foods, where they think either this food is bad or it's because it's a sin and all that kind of stuff. I hate that kind of marketing when it comes to food.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm just thinking when you sort of brought out the old 20 kilo chat, like my biggest fat loss I ever did was 20 kilos. It took about a year or so, but I was trying to think the reason why that was successful was it was tracking macros and all that kind of stuff. But I truly believe the reason it was so successful is because I applied that all or nothing mindset to tracking the macros and to moderation. So I applied that do or die to moderation, which sounds a bit strange. But when you think about it, I was really dedicated to working in, 300, I always, like you say, 10% for junk. So if you're dieting on 3,000 calories, you've got 300 calories for some junk each day. And that, was it optimal? Maybe not. But in terms of results, best I've ever had. So if I knew I was getting 300 calories of, a bit of crap, and I could still hit my results, I was it was totally fine. So I applied that logic of really do or die to the tracking, being diligent with it, to making sure I was tracking everything, but then not going crazy, and accepting when I did have a binge or
just kind of a bit overboard.
Went out, maybe had a few beers. I either dust it off and kept going, or I made sure over the next few days I'd incurred a debt. So in my nutrition finances, so I made sure over the next few days I stopped spending so much. So, Lane Lauter goes on about this all the time, how your macros are your budget. If you've got tons of, if you've got, like you at the moment, I think you're on like 4,500, you've got quite a healthy budget. So, if you want to splurge, you've got the room to do so. If your budget is, if you're on around 2,000 calories, because you're right in the depths of a diet and you're really trying to push the boundaries, do you have that room for error? Probably not. Should you go out and have half a Domino's, a full Domino's? It's not really going to work. So it's knowing when to use your balance, shall we say, appropriately.
Yeah, and again, it's also thinking of that budget that you've got. It's not necessarily like day to day. It's like spread over a week. So as you said, if you go out on a Friday night and have a couple of beers and a takeaway, and you've incurred that debt, you could spread that debt then over the week. So if you've gone overboard by 1,000 calories, okay, over the next 5 days, I'm going to drop 200 calories off per day. And then by the end of the week, you're breaking even. You're still in the same deficit as you would have been without kind of having that slip up. Yeah. So that's something that, again, we utilize if people want. At the moment, I know people aren't going out. So it's something that I utilize with people if they want to go out and socialize, etc. If they know they've got a social occasion coming up, if they let me know ahead of time, as we go, okay, well, what we can do is, right, let's pull 200 calories for the 2 days before, 3 days after, and you get an extra 1,000 calories on top of your day's allowance to be able to go and enjoy yourself. Like, you should still be able to live your life while you're dieting. You shouldn't be, right, chicken, rice and broccoli 3 meals a day for like 6 months. Like, even bodybuilders don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but you should maybe do chicken and broccoli on the days you know you're going out for dinner.
Yeah. Right, so shall we get some questions? I think we've got a few. Yeah, there is quite a few in here.
Can you just send me the questions over?
I'll tag you.
Like, I can't get them up. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so the first question is, yes, nutrition. Could you answer macros, please? I get 1 gram of protein per pound of weight, but how do you work out carbs and fats, please? That's probably down to personal preference. What are your goals? You need to know your total amount of calories first. So the equation that I was taught is your weight in pounds times by 12 should be total calories. Then obviously it's 1 gram per pound of protein, times that by 4 is then the calories from protein. So obviously you take your calories from protein away from the total calories. And then it's however you can then kind of want to split that. If you want to go 50-50, is you take that number of calories, divide it in half, and then each one of those numbers, the number of calories for carbs, divide by 4, that gives you the number of calories in carbs, and you divide by 9 for the number of calories in fats. So it probably just takes a little bit of trial and error about what split kind of you want to go for. Some people do better on higher carbs, some people do better on higher fats. For my clients, what I tend to do is, right, here's your calorie ceiling, here's your protein floor. As long as you're staying under your total calories, I don't really mind the split of carbs and fats. Somebody was doing like a bodybuilding competition, and I might go down into kind of more details of it, but it depends again on your results, the level of your results that you want, and kind of what it is you want to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few different ways of doing it. I do like carb cycling. I do like different kind of approaches. But I mean, if we're starting very basic from the very beginning, if you're already a hard training individual, so this applies to people that are already lifting weights and already know that they train hard, say 3 or 4 times a week. What I would do is I would start with your body weight in kilos. I would times your body weight by 25. I would then add on 1 amount for every hour of training you do a week. So if you train, 4 times a week, would that be 25, 26, 27, 28, 29? I would times your body weight by 29. And that's where I would start your calories off. Obviously, this is just a starting point. it can be different. It might be quite high for some people, it might be way too low for others, but it's just a good round of the ballpark figure to start. I would then I would work out your protein first. I would put protein at 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. So that works out a gram per pound. Just seems to be, a nice, easy place to start. Loads of research can say you can go lower, you can go higher, but I think 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight is kind of a good insurance policy. You've got it all covered. You're not eating too much, you're not eating too little, and it's a decent amount, especially if you're on the larger side. It's quite satiating as well, and protein is great. I always want to look for more ways to eat more of it. Secondly, I'd work out my fats. So we talked about hormone function earlier, and enough to keep your taste buds satisfied. I normally go for about 30% of your body, of your what do you call it, I think of your body weight or of your macros with it. Let me just have a look. I go for 30% of calories. So whatever your calories are, 30% of those will be fat. Divide that by 9, gets you fats. So that's that covered. What I then do with the numbers remaining is for the carbs. So I would then take out work out whatever calories you've worked out. So say, whatever that number is, you came 3,000-ish, whatever. I would take away whatever your carbs equaled. So carbs times 4, take away protein times, take away protein times 4, take away fat times 9. That leaves you with the calories for carbs. Whatever the calories comes in at, divide that by 4, that comes out with your carbs. So the reason I do that is because carbs are the things I normally manipulate while we're training. And when fat loss stalls, carbs are the things I'm going to drop. The reason I do that is because it works. And you can drop things by about 30 to 50 grams of carbs, even as little as 25 sometimes, gets the ball rolling again. So if you already start off on a decent amount of carbs and you start cutting them back gradually, it's a lot easier to deal with than pulling back everything too extreme. So there's tons of other things I do with carb cycling and shifting fats around sometimes and dropping carbs right down just to get some water weight off. But yeah, that's the long-winded answer, shall we say.
Yeah, perfect. Right, next one for me. Deej, how the frig can you bury 4,000 calories? I think it's how much you said you were eating on the last week's video. I know you're bulking, but if I ate anywhere near that, I'd be a human hippo in no time. And how many calories do you eat when you're cutting? So this is where kind of like coaching and stuff kind of comes in. So I didn't jump from being like on 2,000 calories in a cut to like 4,000 calories. It's over. When did I stop dieting? I stopped dieting. I joined my coach at the end of August. We did a 6-week mini cut, which took me to the middle of September, maybe the end of September, so beginning of October. So my calories were down at like 2,000 in October. And then basically from October to now, they've been going up incrementally. So it would go up like 200 to 300 calories at a time, so about anywhere between 5 and 10% up as they jump up. When things stalled, so what will happen is when you're right down at like 2,000 calories, as soon as you jump your kind of calories back up, initially your body will have a little jump up in body weight. It will then adapt to that new amount of energy that's going in, and it will then plateau off and stop gaining weight. That's when then you'd add a little bit more in. So basically you reverse out of the dieting phase to kind of not put on a massive amount of food. And because you are essentially hypersensitized, in theory, you should be putting on a larger amount of muscle mass than if you kind of hadn't done that priming phase. And essentially each time it levels off, in theory, that's your metabolic rate jumping up to kind of that next stage. That's why I have put on body fat, of course I have, but hopefully with the number of training years I've got behind me, I've noticed that I've got bigger. I can see it when I put up side-by-side photos, when I'm at the same body weight, but it just means that we've done it incrementally, just like when you diet on the way down, you incrementally come down. And this is the mistake most guys make when they're trying to bulk, is they don't go incrementally up or down. So when they're dieting, they'll just cut 1,000 calories in a day and they wonder why they're starving by the end of the week. When they're trying to bulk, they just add in 1,000 calories. Whereas actually what you should do is take the number of calories you've got 5 to 10% increments, either up or down, depending on kind of what your goal is. Like that's the maximum you should go, and then see what happens. If nothing's moving, you can always go again. But if you jumped up 1,000, maybe 300 would have been enough to get the needle moving and get you moving forward. Those extra 700 calories that are in there is just all going to be extra body fat that you're going to have to pull off at a later date. So to answer your question, how do I eat 4,000 calories? I will very quickly go over my training day diet. This is going to bore some people, so I will try and do it quickly. So first meal, first thing in the morning is 3 eggs and then 120 mils of egg white, which is about 3 egg whites.
Where do you get your egg whites from?
Bulk powders, just because they come in those.
I'm just going to order some while you're talking.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 full eggs, 3 egg whites, a slice of toast, and I make that either into scrambled egg or an omelette.
Hang on, Deej, we need details. What kind of toast?
What kind of toast? Whole grain seeded bread, because I like a bit of fiber, helps push everything through first thing in the morning.
Okay, and what setting on the toast did you put it to?
I'm a 3. So
a 3. But you're pushing 3. It there a bit, mate.
Yeah, I know. I like it brown. Like Natalie likes it where it's really like lightly toasted.
Do you hold it up to your face to see if it's ready or not?
Yeah, pretty much. That is the measure of if it is done. If it's too dark, it's going away.
Whoa, easy, mate, easy.
So with that, I'll also have about 90 grams of granola at the moment, just because again, that's really calorie dense.
Do you go for the berry or do you go for the nut?
Pardon?
Berry or nut granola? Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not like healthy. It's really energy dense. If you have like 90 grams, 100 grams of granola, it's like 400, 500 calories.
Do you remember that meme that was going around? It was like a full bowl of granola was like 1,000 calories. And it was like, fuck you, granola. You're a con. You like pretending to be healthy.
Well, when I started dieting last year, we just couldn't get any weight to shift. It's because I wasn't weighing my granola, didn't realize like how calorie dense it was. And as soon as I started weighing granola, and also 45 grams of granola is nothing. So yeah, once you're dieting, like pick a lighter cereal that's got some more fiber in there.
Amazing. It's like, do you remember when you weigh a teaspoon of peanut butter for the first time?
Yeah.
And you're like,
and then you lick the spoon as well.
And you're like,
so the trick with that is you weigh the jar, take the teaspoon out for the grams, and then weigh it again. And if it goes to -5, and then you can lick the teaspoon and not have any extra.
Love it.
Bodybuilders. So that's meal 1. So this is a training day. So I normally train around lunchtime. So meal 1 will be about 7:30, 8 a.m. I'll then try and get meal 2 in between 11 and 12. And I normally get meal 2 in right before going to walk the dog. So meal 2 at the moment is 100 grams of cream of rice and about 70 grams of whey. So it's just the whey's in a shake, cream of rice on its own. I used to mix the two and it goes into a stodgy, horrible mess. It's just better just to have it separately. Cream of rice is hard enough to eat on its own. I'll then walk the dog, which helps with digestion. I will then do my pre-workout. So I have a pump agent pre-workout that I also load my creatine into. And then I sort my intra-workout shake, which is about 30 grams of EAAs and about 50 grams of cyclodextrin at the moment. Post-workout, I will then have my 3rd meal, which is normally about 200 grams of rice and either chicken or beef. So it'll be about 120 grams of chicken, 150 grams of ground beef, whatever I've kind of done with that. I just tend to prep them all ahead of time. So what's that, meal 4? Meal 5 is my evening meal. So that's normally a meal with the missus. So that varies. It's the only one that's quite variable is I have tea with my family when I'm in bulking season, just because when I'm dieting, like it gets to a point where I've then got to be having my Tupperware food that's kind of different to everyone else. And then right before bed, I will have about 150 grams of Greek yogurt with about 15 grams of honey, some blueberries, a bit of dark chocolate, and a scoop of whey protein. So you basically mix all that together and it tastes amazing. So that is roughly my 4,000 calorie day. What I've learned from eating this amount of food is actually it's harder to eat like 4,000 calories than it is to eat like 1,500. Because if you skip a meal, like there's no coming back from it. Trying to wedge two of those meals together and get like 1,500 calories in one go, your digestion is then sluggish for the rest of the day. So I have to be like super on it in terms of, right, this is meal one, this is meal two. I've got reminders set in my phone. It's not too bad if it's like an hour either side, but yeah, if I've had to, once I missed meal two, and I had to like bunch it together, and I felt awful for the rest of the day. So I've not done that twice.
Yeah. So for me, for eating, meal one normally starts off with I'll have fish and then some rice, and then around about like 12 o'clock, I'll have some fish and a rice cake. And then once I've finished my session,
too.
I'll probably have some fish and then maybe a rice cake and some rice with that one. And then
I can't remember what documentary was that. It was that guy that was wanting to be a bodybuilder, wasn't it? And it was like,
the thing is he's actually pretty jacked now. They caught up with him a few years later. He's in fucking great shape, but it's just
you can tell whoever was coaching him was like reading straight out of like an 80s bodybuilding manual. Yeah.
Well, see, this is where the IIFYM, if it fits your mouth thing, got so popular, because like diets were ridiculous. They literally were fish and a rice cake, and this is what people ate. Like, it's just unbelievable. Love it.
I was just reading some of the comments on that, just people saying about how many calories and stuff they're on. And this is another point as well, that like, for me, I've got an extremely fast metabolism. I've also got a dog. So even in peak off season, I'm getting somewhere between 12 to 15,000 steps like every single day, which is one of the reasons.
Don't underestimate your steps. Like seriously, that is such a undervalued, underutilized, under-acknowledged part of training. Do not underestimate that.
Well, 1,000 steps is about 40 calories. So if you do 10,000 steps, there's 400 calories burned before you've done any training, before you've done any cardio. Like that's enough to put you in a deficit. Like if you've just eaten maintenance and then did 400 calories underneath it, like you're going to be losing weight. Like one of the biggest tools I will use with people when they first come in is to get their steps, especially if somebody's pretty sedentary, to get their steps from like 2,000 to 3,000 up to like 8,000, and they'll start noticing like fat just dropping off.
Like particularly now, sorry, I've just seen James a question. Particularly now, like people don't move. Like I haven't left the house today, and I've done 4,888 steps, which is fuck all really, and I haven't moved. But like people don't do anything now. So I had a good question. Just came up with a client this week. He's now losing weight on fewer calories than he used to eat. We're like, okay, well, that's fair enough at age and all this. So I was like, oh, hang on a second. What is your lifestyle like? He's like, well, I literally get up. My steps is to go to the fridge and back to my desk. So straight away, he's dropped a significant amount of activity from his day. So we're just like, we're looking at now boosting up to around 6,000 to start with, and then hopefully aiming for that 10K. But, by just boosting his steps up, it's already got things moving. Like the best advice I could say for your training at home, if you want to kick your fat loss off, eat protein at every meal, eat veg at every meal, eat carbs the size of your head, maybe at every meal, and then go for a walk every day. You'll see the weight will fly off like straight away. It's as simple as that. Right.
Next one, Simon Randall. How important is sugar intake? I often have some rubbish carbs, which are generally high in sugar. My weight isn't particularly affected, but I am on my way to. But am I on my way to type 2 diabetes? Studies show increased muscle mass and consistent resistance training reduce type 2 risk. So I figured it was just a balancing act. So Simon was one of my clients who I've helped kind of reverse diet back out. So I know he's on like 3,500 calories a day. So the whole sugar thing and insulin resistance, if you're training with weights regularly, we dieted you down to a decently low point to start off with, which would have increased your insulin sensitivity to kind of start off with. And as long as it isn't like 80% crap and 20% good, you're fine. Your body will just process it. If it's sugar or if it's rice, once it's broken down, it all
gets
just
converted
becomes
into glucose, doesn't it? Yeah.
It all converts to glucose. Your body can't tell the difference of where it's come from. It does have some slightly different effects in terms of like how quickly it's broken down. But as long as you're not eating like a Twinkie on its own, as long as it's part of another meal, it's going to slow down that absorption rate. So if you have a bit of something sweet after your main meal, you've got that main meal in front of it. That's going to have some fiber in there, it's going to have some fats in there. That's going to slow down the absorption of it. Just because something's got sugar in it doesn't mean it's going to spike your insulin levels, because a lot of the studies that kind of did that, they used these things in isolation. It's the same thing with whey protein. So if you have whey protein with water on an empty stomach, it will spike your insulin.
Can you put the light back on, please?
Whereas if you have whey protein and you put it in some full fat milk or have like a spoon of peanut butter with it, it's again going to slow down the absorption rate and mean that it's not going to spike your insulin levels.
Well, that's it. Like, who eats, everyone else says sugar's addictive. Like, literally go and eat a fucking bag of sugar. Do you eat a bag of sugar? No, you don't. Sugar you put cream in that. Yes, that is delicious. So you're addicted to things that taste really fucking good, not necessarily sugar. I think the interesting thing they put in there was, let me just get the question back up, is how important is sugar intake? And I'm like, well, I guess you could probably have zero sugar and be totally fine, or you could have, like you're saying,
have you ever tried to do zero sugar? It's nearly fucking impossible. I remember fruit, when me and Natalie first got together, I tried to do a zero sugar diet, and I was one of the mardiest people ever, because I'd bite into something, be looking at the ingredients, go, for God's sake, I can't eat the rest of that.
But you're such a Karen, aren't you? Like, it's got sugar, I can't touch it, it's thin, I couldn't possibly eat it. I love all this.
It was more of a challenge to see if I could do zero sugar, and you can't. With today's, like, how much it's got sugar in it, you just can't do it unless you cook everything from scratch yourself, which I wasn't doing at 22.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, I think you've covered the topic there, really, man. Like,
yeah. Okay, so Amy Howard, how do you keep fat loss going once you're below the body fat percentage for where your body wants to be? My body seems to be really fighting against it, but I'm eating a high protein diet, some good fats, and lower amounts of carbs. So I'll let you jump into this one first if you want.
Okay, right. So my first questions would be, firstly, how long have you been dieting for, where your body wants to be? Yeah, certain people do have a certain point where things start getting tough. Yeah, because your body does have a bit of a point where it fights against it. Basically, I mean, I think we're going to both go into this, but your body wants to maintain homeostasis. So if you're losing fat at the time, your body doesn't want that to happen after a while, because it goes into survival. And not starvation mode. I'm not saying starvation mode. I'm saying it goes to balance, where it just wants to keep everything equal. So there will come a point in your diet where your deficit will stop working. This is why I'm such a big fan of making sure you've got tools to use once things stop working, because quite often people go maximum cardio, really hard training, low calorie, loads of walking. What do you do when all of that stops? You're a bit screwed. There are ways around it, but you're gonna have to train harder, add more things in, do more stuff. What I would do in that situation is take a diet break, reset your hormones, get things even again, maybe even 2-3 months, and then start it again. So really, I mean, you're eating a high protein diet, great, some good fats and low amounts of carbs. What I'd be interested in is exactly how much good fats and exactly how much carbs are you having. That's another potential thing you could look at. Like, have you got your exact numbers down? So we've got basically what we're trying to do is create the best picture, use the most amount of data we can get to make the best educated guess. So things I know I've done a lot of work with, particularly women, actually, because I've seen it over and over again. They've dieted so many times in the past and put themselves on so low calorie for such a long time. I have seen some big problems. I think, metabolic damage, whether that's a thing or not, the jury's out. Some people preach it, some people say no. But practically, I have seen it where girls, particularly, it does happen with guys, but it seems to be more female athletes. They can't lose fat unless they go on crazy low calorie diets, because that's what they've always done. So if they have to spend, and this is a hard pill to swallow, if someone comes, sometimes I've had girls come to me for fat loss, and I've said to them, that's not what you need right now. You need to reverse, build your tolerance, build your calories back up, take the time of your diet to really, you should need to approach a reverse diet with the same effort you approach a fat loss diet with, in building those calories like you're doing, building it right up. So when you start again, you can start from a much better place. To get the fat loss kicking in again. So I mean, it's a big question. I think, we probably, this is a Drive podcast. You can cover bits and pieces all there, but it would be worth a real good sit down and work out exactly your history, where you are, body fat percentage, your training, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So as you said, it's very hard to give a specific answer without getting all the details that are kind of in there. So I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Dan said there about metabolic damage. So I think it stems more from the diet culture that's come about in the last 20 years. So there's a lot more pressure on women than men to be a certain size. So you'll often find what happens is a woman will diet down to a certain size on crazy low calories. Basically, what happens is when your calories go really, really low, your body adapts to it, slows things down, slows down the metabolic rate, slows down your NEAT, slows down all these things in the background, which means that you can survive for as long as possible on the amount of energy that's coming in. That's your body's number one thing that it wants to do, is it wants to survive. It doesn't know you're doing it on purpose. It just registers less energy is coming in than going out.
I'm helping
I now need to survive for as long as possible on the fat stores that I've got. So I'm going to eat away at my muscle mass. I'm going to do all these things that are going to make sure that I survive. Then what happens is they come off their diet, they go back to eating the way they did before. Because their metabolism is so depressed, if you suddenly add in an extra 1,000 calories, if you're eating like 1,200 and you suddenly jump up to 2,500, you've over doubled the amount of energy going in. Your body goes, oh, great. I'm going to hold on to all this energy now, because I don't know if I'm going to go into another time of famine again. So it then piles on body fat because you haven't got the muscle mass there anymore, because it's eating away at it. Everything's slowed down, everything's depressed. So say you've been dieting for 6 months to lose 5 kilos, but you're going to put that 5 kilos back on in 5 weeks. 5 weeks isn't enough time for your body to have recovered, to have sped everything back up and get everything running at 100% again. So then what happens is, oh crap, I put all this weight back on, right, back to a low calorie deficit. But now you're in an even worse spot, because you've got all that weight back on, you've got less muscle mass, your metabolism's running slower because it's still recovering from the last time. So in order to lose body fat again, now you need to go on 1,100 calories rather than 1,200. And it's just this perpetual cycle of yo-yo dieting. So as Dan was saying, it would depend on how long you've been in a deficit, how many times have you dieted in the past couple of years? Is your body basically, if you hit a brick wall, in which case, right, would it be better to bring your calories back up to maintenance and keep them there for say 3 months? So when we're going to stop you from putting weight back on, but I'm going to slowly increase calories, what you'll notice is a little jump at the start, and then it'll plateau off. After 2 weeks of it plateauing off, I might add another 5 to 10% on until we get your calories to a much better place while you're maintaining a body weight. We increase the amount of resistance training you're doing. What you'll find is your performance in the gym improves. Also, you haven't mentioned on here how you're training. So is the majority of your training cardiovascular, or are you doing resistance training? What you've got to remember is when you're dieting, the majority of your training should be resistance training. You need to give your body a reason to hold on to the muscle mass that you've got or else it's going to eat it as an energy source. Muscle needs energy to survive. You're in a deficit. The body goes, right, if I eat away at that muscle, I'm going to survive for longer on the amount of body fat that I've got. So you have to give it a reason to hold on to those muscles. This is why, like bodybuilders, you'll see they train a lot with weights. They can still maintain muscle mass, but kind of they lose the body fat. So yeah, the in the short term, it would probably be see if you can spend a period of time at maintenance calories. Make sure you're training with weights rather than cardio, and don't throw all your tools in at once, because there isn't very much further that you can go. Just like Dan said earlier, like if you've got everything in there to start off with, your body will adapt. If you throw, what you want to do is the minimum effective dose to get the needle moving when you start until that stops, and then do a little nudge to again move that needle slightly, get it moving again. And that means that you can do those little nudges for 12, 16, 20 weeks and see a good result at the end.
Yeah, I mean, there are periods you can go quite aggressive, but you got to think, I've seen diets make a lot of people fatter. Yes, they do. If you really, really think about it, we don't have a problem losing weight. We have a problem keeping it off. So you'll see, and it's always my bloody parents as well. They do these crazy diets where tons of weight comes off. They won't eat anything. They maintain it for a while, and it's incredible. It's life changing the weight they get off. But every single time it piles back on, like without a doubt, every time. So I'm kind of
And
like,
they get stressed.
they get stressed and then they can it, and it just it's a cycle, hey, and it just gets worse and worse. But it's kind of like you need to have an exit plan for your diet, whether that's gradually coming out or accepting that you don't mind gaining a couple of, you lose extra kilos to gain a few more kilos back. Yeah, that's totally fine. But you need to have a way out of your diet to make it successful. Otherwise, you'll end up piling all the weight back on.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll come back to the questions that I've asked at the end. If we get time, we'll cover listener questions first. Okay, so next question is best snacks to eat while on the go or pick up on if you don't have time or have set hot meals.
Yeah.
So do you want to give your top 3 like high protein snacks?
Yeah, so top 3 for me. I'm obsessed at the moment with Morrison's meal deals. They are so good. So what they do, they've got like a salad bar where you can get some really great stuff. Things like they've got like a naked burrito, eggs, falafel, like some really good whole grain salads, and it's really cheap. It's like £3 for a salad. But what you can do is you can pair it up with some other. You can stack it, like hack it, whatever you want to call it. So you can get yourself a UFit protein drink, which is 20 grams of protein in a bottle, a couple of eggs, what we're talking like 10, 15 grams of protein there, and then building yourself you can buy ready-made like chicken, avocado, or salmon salads. So you're kind of hitting some nutrient-dense food. You're hitting around 30, 40, probably 40 grams of protein, which is ample for most people, and tons of fiber, and it really does fill you up. So I would really recommend the Morrison's salad bar if you can. And it's only £3, which is great. M&S is also really good, a bit pricier, but it's also really good for their fuller for longer range. Protein bars, I'm not a big fan of them, but I do like Grenade bars. I do think they taste good, and the macros are really good on those. So my favorite is the salted white chocolate caramel one, and
Nice choice.
the peanut one I quite like. They're really good.
I like the birthday cake one.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and then I like biltong. If you don't mind dried meat, I love biltong. I could probably just eat it by the packet. Jerky's good. You got to be careful jerkies because sometimes they can have quite a lot of sugars in them. Which not so much the sugar's the problem; it's the calories. Your carbs creep up quite a lot. So high protein snacks for me is get to those salad bars. They've got boiled eggs ready to go, things like that. You can now get bars and shakes in most places, which is really good actually. And then for me, it would be your biltong.
Yeah. So the first one that I would go to is boiled eggs, if you can get them. I know he says don't have access to meals, but at the end of the day, you can stick boiled eggs on a pan at night stick them in a Tupperware tub, and they do smell like farts when you open that tub. So try not to do it in like an enclosed space. It's so bad. I don't know why, but it is. I had to Google it once as to, because Natalie really craved boiled eggs when she was pregnant with Willow, and we were like, why do boiled eggs smell like farts when you open that box? It's something to do with one of the gases. The other thing would be some sort of like dried meat, so like biltong or beef jerky, things like that. If you don't mind like the processed side of stuff, I think Pepperami now do a biltong or beef jerky that tastes amazing, but yeah, the macros on it aren't great. You've got things like Pepperami, if you don't mind, as I said, the processed meat, but try not to eat too much of that, because yeah, processed meats that it's quite kind of calorie dense. A good old protein shake. So not a meal replacement shake, a protein shake, because again, you can then, if you wanted to replace a meal, you could add in like 20, 30 grams of porridge oats and a scoop of peanut butter, and you've got your carbs, your fats, and your proteins then all in one place. What I would say is, if you've got access to a blender, blend the oats and the protein powder together dry first to make it into a thin powder. Because have you ever like drank porridge oats in a protein shake where you haven't done that? They absorb, and then all at the bottom, like you've just got porridge, cold porridge. That's then, yeah, it's awful. So yeah, if you put it in the blender dry and then put that dry powder into your protein shaker, when you just add liquid, it just goes really thick, like a meal replacement shake, but it doesn't have. You look at the back of a meal replacement shake, there's so much shit that goes into them. Like with supplements, you want to try and go for supplements with the smallest amount of ingredients possible. There are a few good ones out there. I think it's RAF Nutrition. I looked at their label the other day and they've got like 5 ingredients. So wherever he's sourcing his whey protein from, it's pretty good. And Jay rates the flavor. I've still not ordered any, just because I've got a different supplier that I order from, because I can get it at what do you call it? Wholesale. So I get my whey protein at wholesale, and then I basically sell on to my clients at a little bit of a profit, so that I cover my own supplements basically coming through. Yeah, I think that about covers that one. Good old whey protein shake to finish off. Is there any reason to increase calories on a training day or a recovery day? I keep my calories the same each day, more or less. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think you can. You don't have to, but if we're talking percent, 1%, looking for a 1% boost in performance, then yeah, you totally can eat more on training day. I just think it kind of lends itself well if you know you're going to train and you've had that big meal and you feel good to train, and you having a few extra carbs, you can hit a few extra reps, and yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, you can get phenomenal results without doing that. You could even go the other way and put higher calories on days you're not training, but as long as your calories at the end of the week are equated, then it'll be fine. But I'm a fan of it. I would say yes. I think if you're looking for just a bit more in terms of potential improvements, yeah,
I think it's one of those, again, it's adherence. So the majority of people need things to be as simple as possible. So if you're using my fitness pal to track, for example, if you've got the free version, you can't have different calorie targets set up on different days. You have to go in and manually change it. Whereas you can pay, I think it's like 10, 15 pounds a month, and you can set like training days and non-training days at different calories. At the end of the day, it's a tool. When you think about your calories over a week, that's the more important part, whether you're trying to build or whether you're trying to cut. Say you're averaging, let's just say, I'm going to say 5,000 calories a day just because the maths is easier. So if you're averaging 5,000 calories a day, you've got 35,000 calories a week. As long as those are fairly evenly spaced, so you're not got like a 15,000 calorie day at the end of the week, and then you're doing like 2,000 kind of on each of those training days, it doesn't really matter like how that is spaced out. I would say putting more calories on a training day and less on a non-training day is more important when you're dieting than when you're kind of building, because you need to fuel your ability to train. So if you're really low on calories, by basically robbing some of the calories from your non-training days where you're not expending as much, because you're not training, and you can then throw some extra carbs in, and you can then, if you're managing to keep performance up, that's going to kind of be a benefit. But if it comes to the detriment that you then can't keep to your non-training day level of calories because they've kind of come too low, then it can be an issue. I think it's very, very person dependent on, one, whether they can stick to it, and two, whether it's kind of going to be beneficial for them. So do you want to read this one, mate?
Hang on, let me just get it back up.
It's from your mate James.
I think I've actually done this. I reckon 2 bites for me. But we had, mate, we were on rugby tour.
Depends on the size of the banana. Like, you can get some
long bananas. Let's go a Deej size banana. We all know he's packing.
Deej size banana.
Like, mate, like, we were on rugby tour once, and not rugby tour. We were in a training camp in Italy. Like, you know how weird rugby players are, right? One of the backs party trick was to eat a banana in one bite, literally like get it down. But he was like proper going for it, like, you know, sort of going on a bit. And I was like, why do you know that you can do that? Like,
why? Yeah, why? When did you think, you know what? That's going to make me some friends someday. The fact I can deep throat a banana.
But that was it. It was just the way he was like, you know, because it was like a pre-season tour, so we were all still getting to know each other. But it was like, right, this is going to be the thing that gets me, like, the guys to like be like, yeah, that's a cool guy. Like, it just seemed like, you know, the memes where it's like, no one, absolutely no one, not one person. Then he goes, chap deep throats a banana. You're just like, okay, cool, yeah, good job, but just. That was quite funny.
That's definitely coming up on a tour somewhere as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we were in Italy at the time. It was just bizarre. It was quite something. So quite something to behold. I was like, wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
I'd probably say 3 for me. Like, I'm not very big, so because my mouth's not very big.
Yeah, I think you're lying there. Hey now, right? What's the next one?
Okay,
can you maintain strength on a calorie deficit? I want to keep a good level of strength but lose fat. I guess a lot of people wish to do this. Nobody says I want it to be weaker. Right, short term, yes, you could absolutely maintain strength completely. I would say there's a limit depending on how fat you are, but I would say 3 months for most people, you can maintain your strength. I would say after that, you have to work hard, but I don't think you'll start making any strength gains, but you can maintain what you've got, but it depends on how much of your strength is reliant on being leverages, like massive. Like, for example, if you've got a huge squat, how much of that is reliant on bouncing off your legs, your gut, using all of that size to lift the weight, or how much is it reliant on, you know, muscle, I suppose. But what you got to think of is, yes, you might lose some strength. Yes, you might get a bit smaller. That's fine. It's all part of the process. You've got to think, where you're going to end up after you've finished your diet. You're much better off going into your fat loss efforts, accepting that you're going to try and make, you know, still work really hard, still training your ass off, but you just are going to maintain or dip a bit. That's totally fine. But when you come out of that diet, you're now primed to get as big and strong as possible. So if you look past your diet over the next few months in front of that, you'll come back a lot leaner, bigger, and stronger. But yeah, I mean, the question is, you'll retain strength for quite a while. The deeper you go into it, it will start suffering.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I think a lot of people use the fact they're in a deficit to mask the fact essentially they're pussing out of sets. Like, when you work to like absolute failure, when you're working within, it might be different when you're up at like top end weights, but I know for me, like, I was still like seeing improvements on my ability to lift even when I was like 4-5 weeks out from a show. So my body fat would have been what, 6-7% at that point. I set a personal best of you doing the 42 kilo dumbbells for a set of like 10, like 4 or 5 weeks out. So I think a lot of strength is neurological. A lot of it is in your mind. And I was off my tits on so much caffeine at that point, just to kind of get me through the day. That might have had an effect. Will you lose a massive amount of strength because you're dieting? Not if you choose not to. I think a lot of it is in your mindset, because people think that they're going to get weaker, they get weaker. as you said, if you go into it accepting that, okay, I might not get any stronger, however, I'm going to fight for every single one of those reps. I'm going to fight for every single gram of weight that's on that bar. Obviously, within limits, you want to try and stay safe. Like, that's how you're going to maintain the muscle that you've built. If you aren't pushing yourself, if you aren't working to absolute failure, and when your food is low, you've got to remember your brain is going to check out earlier because it doesn't want to expend energy. It doesn't want to burn calories. It wants you to survive. Like, throwing weight around, lifting heavy shit up and down isn't natural. Like, we choose to do this as humans. Our body has no fucking clue what's going on. So it's all about like making sure that you've got a target kind of like in your head and then pushing on towards it. And as Dan said, it's all relative at the end of the day. Like, why are you dieting? You want to ask yourself that. So why are you going into a calorie deficit? You've got to remember that throughout the process. You're wanting to lose some fat, but obviously not get kind of too much weaker, then you've got to have a program that's going to kind of accommodate for that. Are you going to utilize diet breaks so that you can be bringing performance along? It's going to take you a little bit longer to get where you want to diet wise, but you're probably going to see less losses in strength. How aggressive are you going to be with your deficit? If you go into a really aggressive deficit, then you're probably going to sacrifice some strength as things kind of level back out and your body wants to adapt to it.
That's fine though. I mean, the way, two things you got to remember. Ronnie Coleman hit an 800-pound squat for a double when he was like a few weeks out for the Olympia. So anything is possible. And then the second part is, think of Thor, the Mountain, Game of Thrones, got 6 packs lean, got very, very lean before World's Strongest Man, but then went on to get absolutely massive, win World's Strongest Man, deadlift 500 kilos. So he got very lean, but then look at where he ended up when he came out of that diet. Was his top 10 strength there? No. Was he trying to have it there? Not at all. But he had it at the place where it needed to be when he needed it.
Yeah, long-term planning.
So I'm going to have to bow out there, mate.
That's okay. The only questions that are left after that were mine, so that's fine.
No one cares what you think. No one cares what you think anyway, mate.
Nobody cares what I think. So as always, thank you everyone for listening. Why can the guys go and find you if they want to see any more of your content?
Okay, guys, come find me on Barbells and Beans on Instagram, Daniel Frazier on Facebook, and in the Home Gym UK group.
And I am also in the Home Gym UK group, or you can search Deej PT on both Facebook and Instagram. So been great to chat to you today, matey. Go a little bit deeper in terms of nutrition. Hopefully we've given these guys a little bit more of an understanding when it comes to nutrition. If you guys have any questions about anything that we've discussed tonight, like, drop us a DM. We're always happy to have a bit of a chat. We love chatting, training, nutrition, home gyms. So yeah, come and have a chat with us, and we'd also love to hear any feedback you've got as well. So also the not home gyms, we have a Instagram page now, so you can follow us at the Garage Athlete Show on Instagram. We're going to be posting out videos, clips from each episode, etc. So make sure to follow us on that, share us on your stories, post us to your friends. We want to get in as many people's ears as possible.
Man, I'm just, after watching that, I've just watched that double of Ronnie Coleman doing 800 pounds for a double.
Yeah, buddy.
But I've just gone on a black
solid ass pounds.
I've just gone on a black into the rabbit hole now. I'm now watching him do 800 pounds for reps on deadlift. Yeah, and it's insane. But like, do you know what he's doing? Mixed grip with gloves with straps. So you're only allowed to do that if you're doing 800 pounds for reps. It's just brilliant.
You're only allowed to do that. Ronnie Coleman could do whatever the fuck he wants, basically.
He wants, but like, just watching the guy, it's just a joy to watch, isn't it? It's amazing. But anyway, mate, I've been about pleasure speaking to you, mate.
Right, I'll see you later, buddy. Bye for now.
Bye.